I guess, yeah. What? Draw closer to it. Like that? Okay.
Pause for airplane.
Yeah, pause for airplane. Okay, so who am I? I'm Stewart's wife, and Esther and Luis told me that if you're the wife, you're called the La Pastora, which sounds like, okay, they realize, it's a job. so here I am pinching for Stephen, and I thought, after talking to people, I'm supposed to be answering the phone, returning the voicemails, texting people back if you call the number or text the number that's on the trailer, okay? And so after a few phone calls, I was thinking, we should explain what the Vineyard is, because it's right there on the trailer, and what are we anyway? So some of you may be familiar with the Vineyard from past experiences, and some maybe not. We're not as famous or cool as we used to be. Maybe we never, and it's one of those things you get to the point where, well, cool is not the point. Serving God is the point, right? It's helpful if you're cool, but, whatever. And, yeah, yes, it's a denomination. Yes, they're in denial about it. It started out as a group of churches that agreed on doing things a certain way. They thought they pioneered, like, casual worship, dressing down for church, putting the lyrics up on the screen instead of having a hymnal in front of you, so you're looking down at a hymnal, or you're looking up at a screen at the lyrics, and therefore hopefully singing out at the Lord a little more. And I've been going to Vineyard since the 90s, and it came to a point where I didn't want to do that anymore, and then I read a book called The Search for the Radical Middle. So if you want some explanation about what is the Vineyard anyway, that's the history of the Vineyard movement, and I think it's a really good explanation about why you should or should not go to a Vineyard church if they're acting like a Vineyard, okay? And so that's why the previous teaching series was on the 5-step healing model, because that's one of the calling cards. That's one of our things that we do in the Vineyard. Besides the slogan about everyone gets to play, it's not the specialists who pray for people, it's everybody, and we're trying to teach you to pray for each other, that sort of thing. And I guess, what was the other thing? Naturally supernatural, so we're not like trying to drum it up or crank it up or get all too excited about it. It's like, if God's there, He puts the energy into it. It's His glory. We're just, we just need to get out of the way and, hopefully direct it at somebody who needs prayer and help, right? Okay, so, all right. So I just wanted to make sure we had a clue about, who is the Vineyard anyway. And then tomorrow's Valentine's Day, so that's why I'm wearing a pink shirt. And I thought, okay, at the very last minute when Steve got injured, okay, the first thought in my mind was, I read a book some time ago about love and the different words in the Bible that mean love, and it turns out to be a C.S. Lewis book. So if you are a fan of Narnia, Lord of the Rings, that kind of stuff, because the Lord of the Rings author Tolkien was good buddies with C.S. Lewis, and so they read each other's unpublished stuff and gave each other, they were in this writing group together called the Inklings in Oxford. And then it turns out, and then I did some more homework, and the 3 words that are on your handout, Hesed, Ahavah, and Agape, are not all the words that C.S. Lewis wrote about. He had a more defined point of view on what love is, whereas what I was reading about love in the Bible and the Hebrew sense, there's a lot more overlap than C.S. Lewis books. So I don't think you could read the book, and get the information, and I don't want to just preach out of a book. So here we are. We've got the Old Testament view of love and the New Testament view of love. Last week, Stephen talked about Hesed, and there's a lot to that definition of Hesed. There's love, compassion. Loving kindness is probably a better approach. It's approaching a better translation. Okay, it's not just a feeling, but takes action, grace, loyalty, devotion. So I have an example here of Ruth took care of her mother-in-law, even following her to a foreign land. So if you haven't read the book of Ruth, it's about this Israeli man had to go to Moab because there was a famine in Israel, and so he and his mother and his wife and his two sons went. His two sons ended up marrying Moabite women, and then they decided to go back, and then the men in the family died, and the women had to decide what to do next. And Naomi, the mother-in-law, said to her daughters-in-law, "Go home. Even if we had other boys, you're not going to stick around for 20 years and marry them. Go home." And Ruth said, "No, I'm coming with you." She's that devoted to her mother-in-law that she's willing to go to a place she'd never been before. Probably didn't like her because she's not from there, that sort of thing. So she's that devoted to her that she's willing to go to another country. So that sense of devotion is another way of looking at Hesed. Okay. And then Moses appealed to God not to destroy the Israelites because of God's Hesed for them. So God was like at some point in the wilderness when Moses was still the primary prophet, and he got so fed up he was ready to destroy them, even though he's promised at the end of the flood not to destroy everybody. And Moses said, "No, you can't kill them. Think of the reputation. Think of the fact that you actually love these people." And so, God. So Moses actually talked God out of doing something. So hopefully that's motivation to pray. If Moses could talk God out of destroying the nation of Israel, maybe you can change God's mind. Okay, so that's one Hebrew word for love.
The woman and the outright, the unrighteous judge as well.
Oh yeah, the woman and the unrighteous judge. Yeah, and then Ahavah, it has to do with affection, care for a person, love of a parent for a child, brotherly love. So you know people, you have stuff in common, you love each other. Love of a people for its leader, not just feeling but takes action. Notice the other one, not just a feeling but takes action. And this includes, since it includes, based on intimacy, it includes sexual as well as other types of love, befriending people, being intimate with them. So, if you're working together long hours and you know each other, you have this project that God assigned you and you're working together on that, a sense of intimacy. And so one of the first examples of the Bible is the love that Abraham had for Isaac. So this is for a parent for a child and his only child, okay, at the time, I think. And then Rachel loved her husband Jacob. And then the whole book of Song of Songs is all about intimacy and love, and it's metaphorical, it's literal, it's physical, it's spiritual. There's a whole lot going on in there. And then C.S. Lewis uses the Greek word eros to talk about sexual love. And they never use that word, the Greek word, in the Song of Songs, but the concept is there. Okay, it's not in the New Testament. They never use the word eros in the New Testament, but they do use the word agape, which is Greek for the unconditional love of God, from God. And then phileo is brotherly love. Okay, so there's an overlap with Ahavah, right? And then I noticed I put a little note there that in the Gospel of John, phileo and agape are used interchangeably. So it's hard to, people will say unconditional love, charity from God. Phileo is like for humans loving each other, that sort of thing, in a brotherly, friendly way. Okay, but the way John uses it, there's a lot of overlap. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is it's not, you can't put it in little boxes. Okay, it's kind of mushed together, and I think Hebrew thinking is a lot more mushy than maybe Western thinking. Okay, we like to think our brains and our hearts, and our bodies are separate entities, but it's kind of like it's you, your soul, your spirit. It's all one thing that's you. And so all that thing that is you, does it love God? Does it love your family members? Does it love people you met? It's kind of all mushed together, okay? Because it's not as compartmentalized. Maybe the Greeks are compartmentalized, and therefore we Americans are, but maybe the Hebrews weren't that way, okay? And maybe that's not what Jesus was teaching if you look at how he taught in the New Testament, okay? So that's why the examples for agape, for example, how you love your enemy, the forgotten ones, okay, you might love people who are lovable, but then you should be loving people who are not lovable, and that's maybe the test of if you are showing agape love. Okay, and then of course the big example of Jesus allowing his enemies to kill him, he loved them and he allowed them to kill him. And I don't have notes from Matthew, but when we talk about love on Valentine's Day and what they read at weddings and all that kind of stuff, that's when we go, okay, 1 Corinthians 13, okay? And so in light of all this loving kindness, sacrificial love, the overlap and the mushiness of love in the previous words, okay, so here we are describing love, okay? Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And then I'm skipping to 13. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. In some translations we use the word charity because they're trying to imply agape love, okay? So that's where, in English we might distinguish, okay, this is agape love, this is all the other kinds of love, and that sort of thing. So that's my Valentine's Day message. Saint Valentine turns out to be more than one different martyr about the same period of time, I think 3rd century. And he or the other people, they were martyred for trying to let people get married when the emperor at the time didn't want them to get married. So that's the history of Saint Valentine. A little bit. Okay. So that's it. So I should have started with prayer, but I didn't. But I'd like to close this with prayer. So this is where we're at. Okay. So Lord, thank you that you are here. Thank you that we can depend on you being here and supplying our needs and supporting us. Thank you that you hear us when we pray and we try to follow you. In your son's name, amen. Okay, so if you have anything that you'd like prayer for, maybe we can gather in groups of 2 or 3 and pray for each other. Is that possible? Can we do that? I know we're comfortably spread out here.